Hello there, and welcome to the 8th episode of Design Talks. Today's episode is titled Conservation Zoology and Design, and we have a special guest with us today. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. Design often circles around understanding and addressing problems, and in most cases, these problems are human-centric. However, we humans share our planet with numerous other life forms whose survival and well-being is necessary for a harmonious sustenance of life on our planet. Today's guest for Design Talks is Prantik, a conservation zoologist, currently a PhD scholar in National Institute of Advanced Sciences, IISc, Bangalore, and a childhood friend of mine. So welcome to the podcast, Prantik. How are you doing?
Hi, Rick. I'm doing fine. It's great to be on your show.
It's great to have you here, Prantik. So to get the conversation started, what is conservation zoology? If you can just explain it a little, and what is its importance?
Yes. So conservation zoology, if you think of that, it's basically conserving or saving or protecting things around us. So as you said in the introduction, that we are a part of the nature and that also has other life forms in it, be it plants, be it animals, every other things. So conserving the organisms, conserving the area or the place where they stay, that is very important. We'll get into the details as we go ahead, but this is what is conservation zoology. That is, you are conserving or trying to protect. It's a branch of science, no doubt. So this is trying to protect or conserve whatever is there around us, which also includes the humans' interactions with the other animals. So it's not, you cannot just take away the human aspect of it, because we are as much a part of the ecosystem as much the other animals are. So yeah, that is a small concept of conservation zoology.
Okay. So as I already know, Prantik, you are working towards conservation, but what exactly is your study? And how is it going to impact nature and people, as you mentioned?
Right, Rick. So I am trying to understand the people's attitudes, their beliefs, which in turn results into the specific behavior towards an endangered species of freshwater fishes, which is called mahseer. So India has about 22 of these mahseer species, which are commonly called the tigers of the rivers or the king of the freshwaters, because they are huge in size. They grow about 1 to 2 meters, weighing about 60 to 70 kgs, with the maximum being recorded as 90 kilograms. So what happens is, when you consider fish, people only think of it from a point of view of food. The point of conservation is not looked into when it is with respect to fish. So most of the work, there are some work that is happening with lesser known organisms, but most of the focus of conservation goes on big cats, as we call them, like leopards, lions, tigers, those kind of things, as well as elephants. No doubt those are also essential, but it is also essential to conserve other species which are at par with those species as well, with respect to their importance in the ecosystem. So since, as I earlier said, humans are also a very important part of the ecosystem, and these the rivers through in which the mahseers live, so they go through the human dominated landscapes, so and they interact on a daily basis with the humans. So in order to conserve something, you need to understand the human dimension or the social dimension of that species. Very important. So that is the aim of my study, to understand where is the problem lying with respect to mahseer conservation, because a lot of work has happened with respect to ecology or taxonomy. Taxonomy means trying to understand which phylum or which species or which genus they belong to. But the aspect that they are also related to the humans with respect to the daily, everyday use, everyday interaction, the social science of it is very essential. So that is what is happening. So as you also asked, what is the bigger goal of this, or the bigger result of this. So the bigger picture is that mahasirs, which are one of the biggest, they are one of the 20 megafishes present in the entire world. India has only mahasirs and the Indian catfishes as the megafishes. So the major impact of climate change, as we can all see, we are suffering through a huge period of heat wave and increasing temperature. So climate change has a major impact on these species because they are one of the huge bodied fishes, so they require an ample amount of resources to breed and to survive. So therefore, a decline in the water as well as decline in the water temperature as a result of climate change is very harmful to them. Yeah, so that is the gist of my work.
Okay, that sounds really interesting, Prantik. So while talking to you about your study, I have heard you use the term science communicator. To me, it sounds similar to communication designer, basically a designer who communicates a message or idea to the end users. So can you elaborate a little more on this? Who is a science communicator and what is their job?
Right. Yeah, so another part of my thesis or my PhD work is the communication aspect. So as you know, communication is something that is very important in any fields of research or study. So science communicator is basically someone who is an intermediate between a researcher. Actually, a researcher can also be a science communicator, but generalizing it and giving a general definition of it. So a science communicator is somebody who communicates the research work that is being done by the scientists or the researchers to the target audience or the users when it comes to any products or designing. So in this case, it's mostly the target audience is the people who will get affected by any conservation policy that comes into play, and also taking the feedback from them and giving it back to the researchers so that there is a two-way dialogue. Now, we live in a society where most of the decisions with respect to conservation happens top down. That is, it happens at the top level, at the policy makers level, in the government bodies, and then whatever is the decision is taken percolates and has to be forced upon the ground level people who are the main people getting affected by any policy that is coming. Now, the role of communicator is very essential because they don't understand what jargons. When scientists or any policymakers use jargon words or scientific words, so those are not easy to understand by the general public. So science communicators' role is to put whatever scientific output is getting out in a more easier term, in a more comprehensible term, in terms that they can easily understand or they can relate to. So that is why you can use multiple ways of communication while talking or disseminating the information from a specific source to the target audience.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is one question that just popped up in my mind while you were talking, Prantik. How effective can art be as a medium for science communication? Like, has that been ever done before?
Right. Yeah, it's a very good question. So actually, performing arts or any kind of art, be it presentations in the form of dance, in the form of paintings, in the form of plays, in the form of dramas, they are very essential while communicating anything. So I'll give you an example. So every region of India has some local or their own dance or a a folklore or a music or a drama or a play or a story that is being happening across generations in that area. So once you take that while communicating your work or anything to the general public, that have a greater impact on the target audience. Nowadays we have this concept of targeting the school children. So it's easier to target the school children because in the school, whatever the teachers teach, that is awareness or the education which they have to do it. They understand it or not, that is a separate thing. But being a part of the school curriculum, the teachers have to teach it. But when you are speaking to a person outside the school, elder people, middle-aged people, so they cannot understand these presentations or PPTs that we put on for children or college children or school-going children. So for them to understand it better, whatever you're trying to say, so you need to use some song to communicate your result or whatever you want to say to them, or you can make workshops where you have children dance on it or do a drama, or even make paintings to communicate it, even make posters to communicate it. Those kind of things are very essential while communicating your results or some findings. So therefore art is actually a very good form that can be used, and it is gradually being used. It's not that common, but it's gradually being used to make people understand. Like while making people understand about climate change, you can have small children dress up and recite a particular folklore. You integrate the concept of climate change into that folklore and make a drama in an evening where the elder and the middle-aged people are sitting, so that the communication is better, so they can relate to it. That is what is important.
Okay, that sounds really interesting, Prantik. So we as designers, we often use tools like posters, animated movies, banners, hoardings, etc. to communicate an idea. Do you as science communicators also rely on similar tools at times?
Yeah, of course. That is, I think there is a connection between your line of work and my line of work. But yes, posters, animated movies. Animated movies has not been used as far as I know. But that is actually a very good idea that can be incorporated in the future by me or by any other people who are listening on keen conservationists. But yes, posters and other banners, those are mostly used. But as I earlier said, we also use different kind of folklores, dance and music.
That sounds really interesting, Prantik. So there's a concept in design called participatory design. So it's a method where we work closely with the end users, taking their feedback into consideration, and at times we also let them initiate a design process. I think you were talking about something in a similar line about conservation as well. So is this something that you also have to do in your field of work?
Yeah, as I was earlier telling, as you also mentioned, so in the past decade, actually, not even the decade, till the past 5 years, most of the conservation work that has happened involving the community mostly has been a top-down approach, as I earlier said, where the decisions are made at the top level, at the level of the policy makers, the government bodies, those kind, and the output is just put out to the end users, as you said, which is the target audience in our case, who are getting affected by that policy, or who technically have a say in it but do not get to participate when it is a top-down approach. So now even I am using it, and it is an upcoming way of doing or designing research strategy, where it is a bottom-up approach, where you go to the field, you talk to the people or your target audience or the end users, and then you try to understand. So see, most of the top-down approaches are the major reasons why certain conservation policy or any kind of implementation works or intervention works, they fail, because whatever they decide, they don't know what is the ground reality. Like in case of my work, as in Mahsir, that is in some parts of India religiously and culturally important fish, and in some parts of India it's just seen as a recreational fish purpose, or from a point of view of food, where they have been fished for generations. Now, if you are coming out with a policy for across the entire country, that since it's a religious fish, so you should not fish it and not eat it, so that might help and give you a positive outcome in places where it has a religious significance. But that policy will miserably fail in areas where people don't associate any cultural value or religious connotation to it. So that is why you need to understand your end users or the target audience to whom this policy is directed at. So that is why you need to interact with them. You need to ask them what is their opinion. That's why you need to understand their attitude, their perception, their beliefs, because these are the ones that is resulting into the kind of behavior they have. That is why, plus every society is different, every groups of people is different, they have different beliefs, they have different norms, they have different values. So you should incorporate them. And as you also mentioned that you are doing a user initiative where the end users are allowed to initiate a design, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that completely has not been used in science, but parts of it are being used in this bottom-up strategy, where they are asked opinions on something. They are not asked to initiate, but yes, if they suppose a policy is made which is made from a bottom-up approach, and then they want to propagate it across different villages, that they are free to do, and they actually should do, because that will have a greater reach in that case, because researchers might not be able to reach every corner of a village, which the certain people in the village who are enthusiastic, who actually want to change something, who want to conserve the organism, so they can initiate that process, and that can spread like a network kind of a thing, which can actually come back again to the researcher. So it can actually form a loop which can help the researcher to make the research design or the conservation policy or whatever experiment or exploration that they are planning according to the feedback gotten back from the ground level.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, Prantik. So what, according to you, will be that one example of a bottom-up strategy that is being used in India which is very effective?
Right. So the example I'll give you is that in Assam, with respect to Mahasir, so in the national park, Nameri National Park, so there what they did was the people living on the fringe areas. So fringe area is kind of a buffer area between the core area of the national park and the place where people are allowed to stay. So people living in that buffer area or the fringe area, they were asked to cooperate with the forest department and then come out with strategies as to how to prevent or stop the process of dynamiting or the process of using toxins or the destructive fishing methods, because they are the ones who are living on the banks, they are the ones who are interacting with the organisms in the water, they are also the ones who can have and keep an eye on any kind of notorious or illegal activities happening on the river banks. So the forest departments were asked to get information from these people, which happened, and then the forest department along with them formed a committee which had certain elected members from the village, and they meet every month or every 2 months, and then the information is then populated and then is gone back to the higher officials where the policy is made. So yeah, that is I wouldn't say it's the best, but yeah, things are happening for change, and which is good. Involving the people on the ground is a very good thing, and that is gradually happening in the Indian science and social science research.
Okay, fair enough. So, to conclude our conversation today, Prantik, what I understood was there are actually more similarities between us than differences. You as a researcher, you as a conservationist or scientist, and I as a designer. Our way of working, the way we think about things and problems, and the way we try to address them or solve them. Of course, there are differences, there will be differences, but there are more similarities than what I thought. Do you agree to that?
Yeah, no, of course, as I said initially, there are a lot of similarities. Yeah, differences would be there, and they should be there also. But there are a lot of similarities, because in the end, we are all designing stuff. Be it products, be it policies, be it conservation strategies, it's all design. And we are also working with the general public In your case, as you have termed them as end users, we term them as the target audience or the target public. So working with them, you also have to work with them, we also have to work with them. There has to be a bidirectional dialogue that has to happen, and not a unidirectional just flow of information is not essential. There has to be a feedback mechanism, which is the case in both design as well as in conservation science. So in that way, I think there is a lot of similarity, and there should be more partnerships that should come up among different people. It should be more of an interdisciplinarity or a transdisciplinarity thing, and should not be just restricted to one subject. So yeah, that is what I feel is the future of these kind of fields of research.
Okay. So to finally conclude our discussion, Prantik, what will be that one message that you'd like to give out to young designers, scientists, and researchers?
Yeah, so the one message, right? The message is that just don't go with the conventional method of research or design. Interact with the people, get information from them. They know the best. The people on ground know the best. They might not always know what is right and wrong, but they know what is right and wrong for their society. Interact with them, get information, get feedback, design anything, design any policy, design any strategy of conservation, and then implement it to get a better outcome or a better user satisfaction or a better goal, and conserve the species whenever you are considering the conservation biology.
Okay, fair enough. That was really insightful, Prantik. And thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me over. It was I feel honored and I'm privileged to been invited as a guest for this talk on your podcast, which I feel is doing amazing. So best wishes to you.
Yes, thank you, Prantik. That was a really interesting talk, and I hope the viewers got to know a lot about conservation and design. Well, that'll be all for today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay safe, have fun.